Welcome to the Baja Brief. Today we're talking about something a lot of people talks about, but not everybody truly understand, building in Cabo. Everybody see developments and the Instagram accounts with everything that's going on in Los Cabos, but what does it takes to understand what it actually takes to build here, you know? Today we're having a real conversation about money, timelines, mistakes, and building here. Our guest, Diego Borrayo, from Design Build Baja, someone who's actually in the trenches. Diego, could you present yourself?
Well, thank you, Alejandro. Thank you for having me here. My name is Diego. I love building, and it's what I do for a living.
Yeah, we have been working with Diego for a long time now. Our agency here in Mexico has a lot of trust in him. We have seen the projects he has been developing over the years, and well, we really recommend this guy.
Appreciate it.
And that's why you're here also, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We trust you. You trust the man. Let's start here. Do people come to Cabo with unrealistic building expectations?
You know, I wouldn't say unrealistic. It's just different. From the permitting process. From the actual building materials, getting your subs in, because it's a different culture. I think all of that has a part to play. Permitting in the States is probably a very systematic, simple process, versus here, it's you don't really know what's going on.
A little bit more chaotic.
A little bit more chaotic, and so I've gotten building permits in 45 days, and I've gotten building permits in 4.5 months.
Okay. That's something I'm gonna ask you about later.
Absolutely. We'll leave that for later.
Okay. This is a good one. How often do you hear, well, in Texas or in California, I build for X amount of money?
You definitely do hear about that. There was this gentleman from Southern California reached out to me. He was over in the East Cape in Playa Tortuga.
Okay.
And he mentioned to me what he wanted to do and what he wanted to accomplish, and it seemed like just a wide open kind of space, and he had a very low budget, and I said that was just highly unrealistic.
Okay.
And he said, why? I could easily do this back at home. And I just simply said, man, well, first of all, you have to remember that the South Baja region is practically an island.
Yeah.
All our lumber comes in by boats, and all the material comes in by boats. There's sometimes you get stuck where you don't have any plaster, and you got to wait 3-4 days in order to get plaster that you've already paid for. And then not to mention in the East Cape, where it's just the Wild West.
Yeah.
Where concrete trucks.
You told me about you had a situation with concrete recently.
Yeah, so
which is pretty basic, right?
It's pretty basic, considering the fact that they have a plant in La Ribera, and in San Jose. So you have two very strategic points that you can easily get in and out of the East Cape, but they canceled my concrete. And so, that delayed me a week. And so I had to find a new concrete company. I had to pay 15% more than what I had already paid for. And so, it's just those things that you run into that, many people don't take into account. And even somebody like me, and even somebody, in my profession, you may already account for these things, but you can't account for something as unforeseen as, hey, we don't go out there anymore.
Let's say all the particularities of Baja make it a different area, right? So we have to take them into account to really have a budget, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Taking all this information, is building in Cabo cheaper, more expensive, or just different?
Oh, that's it's definitely, I mean, in relation to what,
Let's say to the rest of Mexico.
Oh, yes. So most of my guys, actually all of my guys, come from the interior of Mexico. I have people from Chiapas, I have people from Puebla, I have people from Mexico City, from Toluca, Veracruz, and all of these people are known to, be the most hardworking people in Mexico, and arguably, in the world. Well, the way I see it is I bring in these guys who do the same labor that they would do back home for getting paid half the money, and then when they come here, they're getting paid double or close to double. And so they come down here 6 months, 9 months at a time, go back home. And so the labor is more expensive, being in this region that we just talked about, it's pretty much an island, everything's just more expensive, concrete, even just, we don't have to go too far in Mazatlan, concrete's, 30-35% less expensive than it is here.
Just the transportation, right?
And just the transportation, So when you talk about a very short distance, like from here to Mazatlan, and you have that sort of price difference, it's just, it's pretty incredible. But it's what we have here. It's the norm. And it's just what it is.
It is what it is.
It's just what it is.
Okay. What's the biggest myth about building in Cabo?
So I think one of the myths is staying in the budget.
Okay.
Just staying in the budget. If you have a budget of, I don't know, $500,000, and we have this home, it's a myth. Actually, it's more of a myth. It's more of a fact that there is going to be changes, and most likely it's not going to be by the builder. It's going to be by the client. Where
do you think there's a big difference from the US? Like, does it happen over there also?
Absolutely, it happens everywhere, because the client's the same, it's somebody that wants to build a house. And then once you see something come to life, you say, I don't really like the way that looks. Maybe we saw something on Pinterest, on Instagram that we want to apply.
Yes.
And so we're going to change the floor, and that's just a tad bit more expensive, or any of those things can happen. But change is the only thing that there's always going to be a change order. There's always. There never has been, at least in my experience.
How expensive is a mistake here?
Oh, it can get expensive. It can get expensive. I mean, let's not go too far. Just the concrete thing.
Yeah.
Okay. That cost me, 15% more than I was expecting to pay on concrete, which is already a pretty heavy concept to consider in building.
Yes.
So I'm out of pocket 15%. That cuts into my gains. That comes into my what I take home. And so, but that's not the client's fault. I'm not going to sit here and go, hey, client,
you actually back up those kinds of, well, it's not your mistake, but it happens, but you back it up.
Yes, that's one of the things that I feel that you have to do as a builder. Once you have something packed, and once you've shook in the client's hands, and the contract's been signed, and money's in place, then you just have to roll with the punches.
Now I know who I am building with. If someone shows up with 100 to 200K,
yeah,
to build a home here in Cabo, is that realistic or not?
Let's talk about what kind of home. But yes, you can build a home with 50 grand, 150 grand, 200 grand, but like, what are we really building?
Yes.
I
don't think that will fill the expectations.
Absolutely not. I'm saying, what are you building a 50?
What do you think it will be like a standard budget, like to start?
If you're trying to build something in the 2,500 square feet to maybe 3,000 square feet home, with a pool, patio, something nice that you can, call a home and something to be proud of, and be able to bring family and friends and get them to enjoy. I think you're definitely hitting, anywhere in the $600,000 range, maybe 700. Depends on the finishings. There's a saying that the devil's in the finishings. So
So maybe you can save some money and do it for 5, but to keep it like standard 6, 7, and then you can go all the way up.
It all depends on what you want to accomplish, what you want to see in that home. What do you want to show your family and friends? What do you want to see when you get there? Do you want to see marble floors? Are you okay with maybe a low grade porcelain? Are we having quartz on the kitchen tops? Are we going to granite? Are we having full on backsplashes? What is our wood?
Yes.
Or, are we using, alder
That's real important here, right? Because we have some termites problems there, and we use, I think, parota, and there is another one.
Teak.
Teak?
Teak, parota, mahogany. You have
Rosa morada.
Rosa morada, which is a Mexican oak,
Yes.
right? So it all depends. And when you talk about carpentry, it's not just a kitchen. It's closets, it's vanities, it's, everything. So just changing from alder to parota, we're talking about just right there on the carpentry alone, a 30-40% increase in price.
On the wood.
On the wood, So and this is something actually I learned as well recently, that it is not the same for a carpenter to work on parota than it is on, let's say, alder, for example.
Okay.
The reason being is that I did not know this, but parota, it releases this it has this oil, it has this chemical in it that poisons the body. So you have to be extra careful when handling parota. Yeah, I did not know this. My carpenter shared this with me, the carpenter that I normally use.
Do you use like some kind of treatment like to secure it, or is it just in the construction period?
Well, no, it's in the fabrication period, and yes, when it does get treated and it does, goes through that process. But while you're cutting it and while you're, it's squaring and all that good stuff, that's when it, starts releasing it. So you have to be extra careful when you're handling that. And I didn't know that it implied an extra amount of labor as well.
Okay.
So all those things you can.
Don't be afraid to use parota. It's beautiful.
Don't be afraid to use it. It is beautiful.
Okay, to complement this question, what is the minimum budget to build without suffering?
I have a family that they started with a 2-bedroom home. That budget was great, and it was just a 2-bedroom, 27, almost 2,800 square feet home. So it had a very nice, grand, great room, and their budget was $500,000. And it included a nice pool, barbecue area, fire pit. And that was a great budget because it allowed them to really put in whatever they wanted into that space.
Okay.
Some people would say, well, a 2-bedroom home for $500,000, it seems a little excessive. But, the level of finishings that they have in that house, and the fact that they're already in the later stage of their life and they don't need much, and it's not a 2-story home and everything's accessible. And, so it definitely depends on what you want to achieve. If you want to do a 10,000 square foot home for $500,000, that's just, think, unrealistic.
Yeah.
Right? So it just depends on what the client wants and like what Alex wants and what,
Let me put it this way then. What percentage do you have to have like for safe budgeting?
Oh, okay. Also a great question. Some clients tell me that they put aside 5% of the budget.
Okay.
For that. So in this case, if it's $500,000 build, then they'll have, what is it, 50 grand?
We're not doing fast the math.
They're not doing fast the math, but I think it's 25 grand.
Okay.
And so I think their rule of thumb is 5%. Mind you, these guys have built multiple homes in their lifetime. I'm going to go with them. They seem to have the experience in that sense, where how much do we set aside for any extras.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where do budgets explode the most? Which concepts?
You'd be surprised, but in the actual preparing of the land, there is a
like cleaning the land?
Not cleaning the land, grading it.
Okay.
Grading it, right? So there is a home that we're finishing in Rolling Hills. They combined 2 pieces of land and created one, and they sold it for pretty much the price of one. Just to grade, because what we needed to do, it was a great price, but it needed a lot of work done in dirt and machinery in order to make this land buildable. It was close to 3 million pesos, so it certainly wasn't cheap to prepare and grade the land. 3 million pesos to grade land where a 2,800 square foot home was, I think that's
like
excessive, a bit excessive.
that's like 160 or 170 US.
at today's rate, yeah, it's, you know, it's more, I mean, we're like at 16-1 right now. So it's almost like $180,000, $190,000.
It's coming down.
Just to grade, yeah, it's coming down, you know, but just to grade it, you know, it was that much. So it's definitely one of those things where, you know, people just, they think, oh, we'll just do this and that, but you know, there's a lot more to it. You know,
I think the land is the most unpredictable variable. Like
Yeah.
the rest, you're a little bit more under control. Like the market may move the value of it, but once you're in the land, it's like you never know what the real escalation and the kind of dirt you have and what you have to fill it with. You know, that's what will become a big difference, right? Is building here still financially intelligent or only emotional?
it's a great question, Alex. You know, I believe, you know, that depends. You know, a lot of these questions that, you know, it depends. And I'll give you two examples. Yeah, I'll give you two examples. You know, if you're the kind of guy that's building your dream home, you know, and you're building a very specific home, something super modern and something just tailor made exactly for you, where it's a, let's call it a 5,000-6,000 square foot home, you know, and who is really in the market, or what percentage of the actual buyers are really into a market for something as specific as the home that you designed specifically for your family? Probably not so many.
No, that's emotional.
That's emotional, you know? And so when you build to sell, you want to build and design something that is appealing to the masses, you know, probably to the grand majority of the buyers, you know, which is maybe something contemporary, or, you know, not so overly modern, something Mexican, something that we know that, you know, sells and will hold its value, you know, across time.
So it depends, because if you have the money and you want to build your dream house over in Baja,
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, right? If you sell it or not, that's for you, you know? The home that we just designed is just under 10,000 square feet.
Okay.
You know, it's a massive home. It's a massive home. And so I don't believe that these clients are looking for a resale per se, but I think they're looking for some sort of a rental property, in a way where like some sort of Airbnb, or it hosts like not a wedding venue per se, but like, you know, hosts the people going to the wedding and that sort of thing. It really is a grand house. It's a beautiful home. And but I don't think that this home will be, if they do decide to sell it, I don't think it would sell so easily, just because it's very specific to them.
Yeah, we cross some houses like that, and they become a little difficult to sell. Eventually, there's someone for it,
Eventually, yeah, absolutely. There's what, 7 billion people in this world. There's bound to be somebody.
and everybody wants to live in Baja. So that's right. Let's talk about people. What makes you excited about to work with a client, and what makes you nervous to work with one?
And this is not, you know, offending anybody, or I don't want to, you know, do any of that, but it's just like, you know, when somebody comes at me and they have like something drawn up and say, hey, can you draw this up, and, you know, tell me what this costs, and blah blah blah, and make these changes, and you know, maybe they do understand and maybe they don't, but, you know, but all of that requires time. Okay. You know, and like, we all know the saying, you know, time is money.
Yes.
You know, so it's not just coming up with a quote. It's having to quantify the material that makes up that quote. It's quantifying all the concepts that make up that budget, and then me pricing it out in order to give you a proper quote, you know. So all of that requires time.
Okay.
And so this is not something that I do on my own as well. You know, I have my team that helps me out as well. You know, I like my architect Luis, you know, when we sit down and do a budget, you know, he does a lot of the grunt work, but I have to pay him, you know, and gotta pay him every week, yes or yes, you know. So if I'm doing something like that, then it costs me money to do. And I'm not saying that I haven't done it before. I have. And this is the reason why I typically don't do it anymore.
Okay.
Right. So that's something that's a red flag for me. And something that gets me excited is a client that is excited,
Okay.
you know, I like seeing people that are excited to build here and that have that vision of what their home, not necessarily would look like, but at least what they want to have in it.
Like to start with a good talk to get to know them, what they're expecting. Like I want to have view to the ocean, and and you start creating.
Absolutely. What some that excites me is like full transparency. Like because I like to be fully transparent with my clients. I think that establishes a good relationship with them,
Okay.
with each other. Because typically we're in bed for over a year.
Yes.
So you want to have a good relationship with that person or those people. So yeah, it's just something that gets me excited as an excited client.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you turn down projects?
Yes. I do turn down projects, and it only has to do with, it doesn't look as serious. If I'm more serious than the client, then I'm not, then it's probably not for me.
But when you're pushing, right, to make it happen.
Yes. I have, very quickly, years ago, there was this client, and we did all the changes he wanted, and he came back and said, you know what, I'm going to tweak it myself. He tweaked it himself, the plans, came back, he said, this is exactly what I want. Budget this out for me. We did. And, the budget turned out to be 2 times more than he wanted. And he said, why is this 2 times more than what we said the budget should be? And then I said, well, because the home is twice as large as you wanted it to be. And he said, but I didn't want such a big home. And I said, you designed it. And then so, it just went downhill from there, and, had to turn him down. I just had to turn him down. And so, you just run into these things, and
It happens, right? I mean, it happens everywhere.
I think in every line of business.
Okay. We are in short of time, so I'm gonna jump to a real story. A project that almost went wrong, but it didn't went completely downhill. Something you managed to rescue.
We started pulling the electrical wire
Okay.
right in the house. For the electrical wire, doing tests, all that good stuff. And so everything went well. The tests were good. The lines were pulled in good. All the 3-ways worked the way they were supposed to. Everything was fine until, thank God, that the client saw the box.
Client.
The client. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you, Tim. And he saw the box of wire, and he simply grabbed it and looked at it and realized that the wire that I was using was not the quality that it should have been.
Okay.
Right? So once he pointed that out to me, I called the supplier, and I simply said, hey, why are you selling me this material that is no good?
Okay.
Like it's borderline illegal to use.
Okay.
And so not gonna, say who the supplier is and that sort of thing. But, we have to pull the wires out and rewire the house, and
That's not an easy task.
not an easy task, but it's something that has to be done, because that's an electrical hazard, 10, 15 years down the road. So, it just goes to show that you have to be on top of your game all the time, and you can't really just rest on anything. You just have to be very vigilant in everything.
Experience is everything, man.
Experience is everything. Yeah, you learn a lot from your mistakes.
Actually, what's the most expensive mistake you seen someone make? Not even you.
Well, actually, in front of the house in Rolling Hills where I'm building, their retaining wall just completely faulted and broke off from the corner. So that's a very expensive. I can't, if you want that thing.
Why will that happen?
They didn't anchor the corners correctly, and they didn't anchor one wall to another, and they pretty much made 2 separate retaining walls without really anchoring to each other, so they just broke off.
And you're telling me this, and this seems pretty obvious for a guy who doesn't know anything about that.
Yeah, sure.
So wouldn't that be obvious?
I mean, yeah.
Okay. The importance of getting with the right builder, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the most expensive thing I've seen
Okay.
for sure.
Really quick question: timelines. What do you have to say about timelines?
Timelines is probably don't get married to the timelines. It's a good idea to know have a really good idea. And I mean the timelines in the design process and the permitting process, because we've designed the home in 30 days where the client just absolutely falls in love with. And, we've designed the home in, 6 months, so 1 month, 6 months, that's a big difference. So, it all depends on the communication you have with the client and that sort of thing.
Correct.
But yes, but the construction timeline shouldn't really move technically unless there's a lot of change orders like we talked about.
Like if everything goes smoothly, no changes, it should be on time.
Correct. It should be on time. Correct.
It happened? Have you been in a construction in a building that it was like on the timeline?
No, there's always something, could be hurricane season. When we were grading Rolling Hills, we started grading in September, and and so that delayed us. We had to take out some dirt, put it back in. That delayed us. So there's always something unforeseen. But if there isn't something unforeseen, then you should be.
Of course. Yeah. Is building in Cabo still a smart investment today? And how you should build if you are planning to sell in 5-7 years?
Yes, I believe building in Cabo is still a good investment. I personally have 2 different properties here in Cabo, one in the East Cape and one inside Rolling Hills.
Okay.
I believe that has a huge potential in Rolling Hills. And even if I sell the lot now, I'd be making very good margins just on the lot alone. And to build, you just have to build something timeless.
Yes.
You have to build something timeless, whether that's something, just look around and, what's built, what's sold, and, something contemporary, something Mexican, something hacienda, something modern, and you can't really go wrong with what's already been built.
And that's also the good thing of going to the experts. They will guide you in this kind of things. Like
Absolutely. And it's especially talking to somebody like you, Alejandro, you can easily pull up your the MLS and just look at the history of what's been sold and the prices and the areas, right? So definitely talking to somebody like you will add a lot of.
Well, maybe I will tell them like, oh, let me think about it for a day, and I will call you. And what do you think about it?
I'd be able to help for sure. No, count on me.
Of course. Final rapid fire. Who should not build in Cabo?
Somebody who's not doesn't have the money, I would say.
Okay. Who absolutely should?
Somebody wants to spend time in some of the world's best weather and beaches in the world.
Yes. Is now still a strategic moment to build?
Yes, I believe so. It's a great time to build. Cabo's on the rise. It's been on the rise since it was on the map.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I think this will be for some decades. The growing situation of Cabo, of Baja, is coming up.
We have 2 separate 4 seasons. We have the Ritz. We've got the St. Regis. We've got everything.
We're talking with a guy who is working at the Pacific side, at the East Cape, inside the city. He knows the area, and I really appreciate it for you to take the time to talk to us about all of this, Diego. Thank you very much. I think we got a really good podcast today.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's go to Rolling Hills.
Let's go to Rolling Hills.
Yeah.
Let's do it.